What's up? Matt Plapp here, MPTV. We're back with another great episode. This time, we've got the person you need to know and need to hear from. We've got my banker, Mr. Lytle Thomas. Lytle, what's up?
How you doing, Matt? Good to see you.
I'm doing amazing. It's great to see you. I was thinking you were going to carry like a briefcase of money and we could throw it everywhere. But
Right. Well, I had some free samples, but I'm all out currently, so sorry about that.
So before we dig into some business talk, tell everybody who you are, what bank you're with, and a little bit about your background.
Sure. I'm Lytle Thomas. I'm president of First National Bank of Kentucky, which is based in Carrollton, Kentucky. It's a 141-year-old bank.
Wow.
So it's been around a long time. There are not a lot of banks that have been around that long because they would have had to survive World War I, World War II, Great Depression. I mean, go through the list of events that have happened over the last 141 years. So not a lot of banks that old. But this is a great little bank, has really, really great technology for a bank as small as this is. And I joined there 2 years ago to bring an office up here into Northern Kentucky and to deliver that community bank model into this market up here.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you and have you on the podcast is because I think there's immense value from somebody that's been around the business banking world for a while. That's how I know you from the last 20 years of different banks you've been involved with and dealing with business owners. But one of the big things that I saw, and we'll cover a couple topics because we bank with you and we've done some cool stuff, and there's some instances of how a relationship with you versus a relationship with a national bank is much different. But the biggest thing that caught my attention was when the pandemic hit, and we deal with a lot of restaurants nationwide, many of them independents, and it'd be 2 or 3 months in, and they still had no clue about what a PPP loan was, what the EIDL loans were, and all these different things happening. How I talked to one the other day, didn't know what their employee retention tax credits were. And I, knowing his biz, I go, I bet you got $100,000 on the table.
Yeah.
And what I found, in my opinion, I want to get your feedback on this, so many people, at least in the world I deal in, have went to online cheaper tax services, online cheap accounting services. They got national banks. And so when the shit hits the fan, so to speak, they don't have an expert they can call up. The fact they were calling their marketing guy for
financial advice.
Matt, what's the PPP loan? I was like, dude, I'm scared for you.
Yeah. Well, so I think that those services have their place. And if it's a very generic business, a very simple business, those services have their place. But when you're a small business owner, you talk to people to find out and figure out how to run your business more effectively, I think you typically have a good attorney, a good accountant, and a good banker that you talk to. And that's certainly been the model throughout my career. And earlier you were mentioning, we've known each other a long time. I've been in the business for a very long time, which is a way of saying I'm really old. So I appreciate that. But,
141 years, right?
That's right.
Because you started the bank now.
So I'm only the 6th president of the bank in 141 years.
Damn.
So I have to work until I'm like 92 to keep the tenure going. So I've got a long run here. But, I think community bankers play a very important role in local businesses that are supporting local jobs, local families, local communities. If you look at any small town that has lost their local bank, that's sold out to a bigger bank, and they closed the local branch, that's a community that's withering away. And you've got to have a bank to be able to transact business through. And when you lose that in a community, you see the community deteriorate. And so I'm a big believer in the community bank model. And there are fewer and fewer community banks all the time because it's become expensive to deal with the compliance and the burden and competition. And one of the things I found with First National Bank of Kentucky is that the technology in the bank is superior to most banks this size, and that's afforded us the opportunity to continue to grow and make money at a time when other banks are struggling to do that.
Yeah, and the banking relationship is something my dad beat into me growing up. And I kind of forgot it a little because our marketing firm for 8 or 9 years had no financial needs. I mean, really, we didn't have a building, didn't have company vehicles. Yeah. And I always told myself, okay, I'm going to get a banking relationship because my dad always said, you got to have it. When we had the boat dealership, we worked with you. There was always that comfort of knowing that there was somebody on your side versus the last, 10 years before you guys I had with Huntington Bank. And I won't put you on the spot there, but I can say it like I was a number there. And I remember going in there for something really basic. And it was like pulling teeth. And I'm like, shouldn't be this hard. Like I've run millions through here. You see our numbers, you see the cash that's in there. And it was like, you would have thought I was a deadbeat drug dealer with no history with them. And it was bizarre because even the person I was dealing with, who I've walked in and handed checks for years, no power, no say. It was just a glorified, I mean, we'll call it an employee, but just somebody there.
Yeah.
And my dad, I remember talking to him about it. He's like, well, you know, Lytle's back in the market. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And you guys didn't think the branch was a month or two from being open. And we sat down and put things together. And here we are now. We've got 2 or 3 things happening with you. We've moved our banking there. But for me, it was also having somebody like you that I can call up and get business advice, because you see what a lot of businesses are doing. You see what the market's going on.
And that's the best part about my job is I get to go out and visit with people that are running businesses every day, dealing with people, dealing in different industries. So I get to see the good, the bad, the ugly of what's happening in the marketplace. And over 35 plus years of doing that, you begin to understand how some of these things work, and things are cyclical, and history repeats itself. And so, it does offer you the opportunity to say, I've seen this kind of thing before. Let me explain how that happened and what it looked like. So I think that offers value, certainly great value to the customer.
I think you've got to have, as a small business owner, and maybe with the way the online world is, people don't value, like I've got a local mortgage guy, like you've done the mortgage on land I just bought. Yep. I've got a guy, Milt, that's done the mortgages on my house in the past. I mean, most of my relationships are local.
Yep.
My attorneys are local. My, Chris Rogers, my bookkeeper, is local. Scott Maloff, who did my books for a long time, is local. I never went online. I don't go to TurboTax for taxes.
Right.
I have a business that's sizable. I want to make sure you get the right advice, but the pandemic showed it to me big time. The other day, I talked to a guy the other day who never got PPP money. And it was because his comment was, man, I didn't know who to turn to. And I'm like, well, that's part of being I always tell people, like, we get people call, well, we don't need marketing help. I'm like, well, I can see what you're doing. You need a lot of marketing help, but you need to have people on your side. You need to have a person you can turn to, even if you're not paying them, that's a trusted friend that can say, hey, here's why. Like I had a person the other day who was sharing TikTok videos on Instagram. Well, they didn't know that Instagram and Facebook suppress the viewership of a video with a TikTok logo on it. And the guy was creating great content. And I called him up and said, hey, by the way, love the videos. You need to put that video directly to Instagram without the TikTok logo. He's like, why? I said, because they suppress it. It's a competitive brand.
Sure.
And they've come out and said it. And that's the advice that, like, I can bring from a marketing standpoint to friends. But it's the other people, like I've got Chris Rogers in my life. I had Scott Maloff. I've got you. That from a business standpoint, that when these things are out there, not having somebody you can turn to, because you can't call an 800 number at these banks and say, hey, what's the deal with the PPP?
Right. Well, I mean, any business has to surround themselves with good people. That's why, corporations have boards of directors. They're smart people from different disciplines that bring information, knowledge to the table. And, it's no different for a small business. You might not have a formal board of directors, but you kind of have a board of directors, right? You've got your accountant, your attorney, you've got your executives here in the company, your bank. So you've sort of formed that informally, and they're lending you advice and hopefully helping you drive the business. I know, super proud of how well the business is doing, and want to congratulate you about that. It's exciting every time we talk.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, we just finished April. April was 86% up last year, and last April was up. And I had a buddy of mine who told me the other day, he's like, man, you guys are going to be a scary company in 2 or 3 years. And I said, no, I know why, but I said, why do you think? He's like, well, the restaurant business has kind of had a tough go about it the last 24 months.
Yeah.
And the fact that you only had 2 months where you didn't grow, March and April of 2020, and then every month after that you show uptick, and then some months
significant uptick.
Significant uptick.
Yeah,
right. I mean, when you grow 86, 89%, it's a lot. And I said, well, it's one of the biggest reasons I credit that is we don't sit still. We take massive action. Even yesterday, I'm listening to a new podcast. I started listening to a guy that I trust and love his opinion, and I'm like, oh, that's another idea. I'm going to create an audio only, a 4th podcast. And one of my employees I told about the other day was like you have time. I'm like, you know what? I'll make time. I'll make time for a 15-minute conversation that we can upload online to help get messages out there, because in my business, and really in any business, money follows attention.
Yeah.
And the more attention your business gets, the more times you're seen on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever the hell it's at, the better it is. And that's why we've done a lot of businesses like mine kind of hid in the last 2 years. They accepted that the restaurant business was getting its butt kicked with employment and food costs and shutdowns.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm sure there's people out there that are growth-minded like me that still want to make money.
Yeah. You still have to fight through it.
Yeah.
I mean, so just on your thought there, you're talking about serving your customer, right?
Yeah.
You're driven, this passion. Another podcast is about, gosh, this is another message we can get out
Yep.
to help people out. The money follows, but it's not about the money. It's about the passion
Yeah.
to take care of your customer. And that's really the same thing I see in community banks. I was just last week at a national conference for community bankers, and
Is the pool full of money, or how's that work?
no, it wasn't. It was
Okay.
it was kind of chilly actually. The pool was there were only seagulls in the
Okay.
pool, but the common theme at each table, it didn't matter if it was a $2 billion bank or a $500 million bank or a $100 million bank. Anybody could have switched seats because everybody was driven by the same passion, and that was taking care of their local customer, helping businesses do well, helping communities thrive, helping families get in a house,
Yep.
get in a car, do what they needed to do to be productive communities. So it was interesting to me that it doesn't matter if that's Texas or Alaska or New York or Kentucky. It was the same theme at every single table in that room.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it's what do they say? It's not a job if you love doing it every day
Right.
after
That's
the.
right.
And that's one thing
Yeah.
with me. I wake up sometimes and go to get in the shower in the morning and wonder why I do what I do. Like I looked at my calendar the other day and I had 17 appointments,
Jeez.
and I was just like, I why do I do this to myself? And then I get into the day and it gets to 7 o'clock at night and I'm ready
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the other night, my dad, who's 75, he coaches 9, I guess 10 of the people on my team. And he's in here. We do a thing at 4:45 called the Hurrah every day, where those 9 people, I guess there's 10, me and Dad are 11, log in at 4:45, sometimes in person Zoom, because some of them are around the country, and we do a Hurrah. Which your one thing that happened today was exciting. And my dad, like, I'm like, dude, did you just like drink 5 Red Bulls? I mean, he's 75,
No,
and he's
amazing
so
energy.
excited. And the reason he was so excited is because he had impacted my whole team.
Yeah.
Like every one of them had good things going on. He had 4 coaching sessions with them. You remind me to show you his little chicken he's got out there. That's his little prop. But
Yeah.
it comes from passion and enjoying it. And I think that it's the same way with content. Like one of the guys, Aaron, who rents from the building here, who does a podcast in this room, he had a TikTok video yesterday get posted. It's up to like almost 200,000 views in one day.
Wow.
And the reason it's up 200,000 views is he gave 6 tips on what to do when you buy a house.
Okay.
And he was like, change the garage code, change this, do this. And one of the ones which I had never thought of, and it was funny because it's gotten the most attention, was change the toilet seats. You don't know who sat on them. And I think it was more joking, but like people are in this comments,
advice.
commenting left hundreds of people about the toilet seats. But
Oh.
the video did well because he was helping.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key element of small businesses, whether you're marketing a message like me and you want to help people, or whether you're a bank like yourself that you want to see small businesses survive and thrive.
Yeah, it is great to be a part of the team for a small business when you're lending them money and they're using that and they're leveraging themselves and growing their business, and it's everybody celebrates when things are going good.
Yep.
But the time when you need your banker is when things aren't going good, or when times are tough, or when a pandemic shuts everything down and you're trying to figure out how to get your PPP loan.
Yep.
And you've got somebody on that lifeline you can call that's going to help you out. That's really when the banker earns their money, is when times get tough.
So what's some advice if you're talking to a business like, right now I know a couple guys in the restaurant space that are expanding a lot because they see empty storefronts of people who closed up, chains that consolidated. What do they, if they come to you, they got a national bank, they find you as a community bank, let's say it's somebody here in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, or even Indiana, and they're looking to sit down and start a relationship. What are some things they should bring to the table to help you understand their business better?
Well, for bankers, it always starts with the financial statements.
Yep.
And from those financial statements, we calculate the leverage ratios and the cash flow and the debt service. And we have those guidelines in place in the loan policies at the bank, because we know if you stay within those guidelines, that 99% of the time, more than 99% of the time, your business is going to do well. I mean, there is such a thing as growing yourself broke, and it happens time and time again. If you don't have adequate capital to support your growth, the cash flow can't catch up, and next thing you know, you're in trouble.
Yep.
So it's important to have that conversation up front. I try to sit down with folks that bank with me on a regular basis, whether that's once a year or if they're really growing quickly, once a quarter, to talk about how quick can you grow and how much can you afford and how much risk are you willing to take, because the bank can go this far, and beyond that, you're going to need an equity investor or family money or personal money to put into the venture to keep driving that kind of growth. So we just lay it out up front.
Yeah.
I think it's important that the customer understand what the bank's looking at so that they can make plans accordingly. Yeah. They need to understand what leverage ratio, what debt service coverage, where the bank's going to be comfortable.
And having all the cards on the table. Don't hold stuff back.
Right. No. It's got to be all cards on the table, open conversation. The good news and the bad news. What are the challenges? What's coming around the corner that we haven't seen yet? What's your fear? What's your pain point?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a product in the bank that might be able to help some collections or cash flow or bill payment or whatever it might be. And sometimes it's an industry issue or an economic issue that's coming that, hey, we're seeing this in a number of the early indicating companies out there that are in kind of front end of economic cycles. We're seeing them start to slow down. You might want to expect this coming in your business. So I think those conversations are just so valuable, and they're interesting. I mean, you find out what's going on. We're lucky here in this Cincinnati area that we're somewhat insulated. We see it happen typically on the coasts before it comes here, so we prepare for it. So our cycles are never up as big and certainly never down as big. So we're somewhat fortunate this is a good place to be a banker.
Love it. Is there anything on the horizon in the banking world? Anything new out there, anything different or anything happening? I know there's the employee tax credits that are going through and people put all that stuff in.
Yep. Yeah, that stuff, that's not new. That's been there. I think, most of the banking regulation is federal regulation. And so as you have a change in D.C., you have different opinions on how banking should work. And so one of the concerns for community bankers is in digital currency.
Yeah, crypto.
And not so much crypto, but a central bank digital currency.
Okay, gotcha.
That if the Fed had a digital currency that was going to be direct to the consumer, then funding would be taken outside of the banking community. So if we don't have checking accounts, we don't have money to lend.
Gotcha.
So if there was a direct relationship between the consumer and the Fed that exempted community banks or any banks, that would hurt community banks. Yeah. If the Fed does a digital currency through the community banks, we think that delivery channel is in place and very well suited to address the consumer needs. So, some of those things are on the horizon, but they're being talked about, and I think people are trying to figure them out. I don't know that all the parties involved have been at the table to kind of state their opinion of how this might work best. So that's to be seen.
To be seen.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I appreciate you coming in today.
Absolutely. Great seeing you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Glad to have you on. And if you learn anything from this podcast, this episode of MBTV, it's relationships. It's when the pandemic hit, I had people to turn to, legal, financial consultants that could help me navigate water. And it also, you should learn that it's pretty scary that restaurant owners were calling Matt Plapp for advice on PPP and EIDL loans and employee tax credits and things like that. So surround yourself, and I hadn't thought about that, but surround yourself with local connections that can be your at-large board so that when the shit hits the fan, you know how to fix the fan. That's all we got this episode of MPTV. We'll see you next time.